Alabama and Florida keep on dancing while Arkansas suffers an epic collapse. Who will join the Tide and the Gators in the Elite Eight? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. If you need one now, grab a 5 Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. All right, we got two teams moving on. Who are going to join them? Well, let's recap what happened on Thursday night. And we got to start with the Alabama Crimson Tide, as Alabama's number one offense made history Thursday night, breaking the record for most three-pointers made in an NCAA tournament game. That record was set by Loyola Marymount 35 years ago when they made 21 threes in a tournament game. But on Thursday, Alabama made 25 three-pointers. They broke the record with 8 minutes left to play, and the Tide rolled BYU to a convincing 113-88 beatdown to advance to the Elite Eight. Bama attempted an NCAA tournament record 51 three-pointers. They took 66 shots. That means only 15 shots were not three-pointers. Mark Sears had a tournament game for the ages, and that's considering 3 years ago he dropped 35 in a tournament, lost to Abilene Christian when he was at Ohio. But Sears went 11 of 18, 10 of 16 from three, 34 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, an incredible night from the senior leader. By the way, Sears was just 1 of 9 from three in his first 2 tournament games. Aiden Holloway was fantastic. He had 23 off the bench. Just felt like every time BYU tried to make this thing a single-digit game, Holloway would knock down a 3. Chris Youngblood had 19 points. Grant Nelson pulled down 10 rebounds. And, again, just that leadership from Mark Sears, fantastic. Alabama reaches the Elite Eight in consecutive years for the first time in program history. Remember, last year they got all the way to the Final Four. It was their first Final Four appearance in school history last year. Can they do it again? But Alabama, they loved shooting three-pointers this season. They averaged 28 per game. But against BYU, it was falling. They just kept taking it. Alabama's previous three-point record for most made in a game was 23 against LSU 4 years ago. Collectively in this game, Alabama shot 53% from the floor and also made 18 of 21 free throws. Nate Oates saying after the game, we got to be better against Duke. Now, what's funny is he said that before Duke had even beaten Arizona. He just kind of assumed. We all kind of assumed that this matchup was coming. I said it a few weeks ago when the bracket came out. I was like, look at that. Can we get a Duke-Bama matchup in the Elite Eight? Well, we got it. Arizona did not beat Duke. Duke took care of business. Cooper Flagg looks amazing. So that is going to be a fun matchup in the Elite Eight. But congrats to Alabama. Congrats to Nate Oates. An incredible run they have been on. How about over at Florida? They are headed to the Elite Eight. The Gators took care of business on Thursday night against Maryland, beating the Terps 87-71 as they punched their ticket to the next round. Florida jumped out to a big lead early. Maryland was able to close the gap at the end of the first half, but Florida separated in the second half. Alex Condon, he suffered an ankle injury midway through the first half, did come back after halftime, finished with 6 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. That'll be one to keep an eye on there in the Elite Eight, but I guess the fact he was able to come back is a good sign. As for the rest, Florida led by Will Richard, who scored 15 points. Elijah Martin had 14 points and 7 rebounds, and he was just, he was one of 6 skaters who scored in double figures. Walter Clayton Jr. had 13 points, 4 assists. Florida just showed how deep they are. I mean, it was like everybody kind of took a turn doing something good on this night against Maryland. As a team, Florida shot above 50% from the field, went 11 of 28 from three-point land. And the Gators in the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2017, looking for the program's first Final Four berth since 2014. It did commit 13 of 17 turnovers in the first half, but they took better care of the basketball in the second half. And a nice win for Florida, knocking off Maryland. Remember, they beat UConn last time out, but Todd Golden saying after the game, our message was simple. We've got to take care of the ball at halftime. After the game, he said, it's surreal, to be honest. The thing I keep going back to selfishly, personally, I don't want this to end. We have a uniquely tight group, and it has been an amazing run. Florida used their depth to create a 29-3 advantage in bench points in this one. So Florida will face Texas Tech in the Elite Eight on Saturday. Why will they face Texas Tech? Well, Arkansas. What happened? The Hogs had a 38-31 halftime lead over the Red Raiders on Thursday night. John L. Davis, Carter Knox doing a lot of the work. Arkansas was 7 of 14 from 3 at the half, and they go on to lose in overtime 85-83. Razorbacks appeared in complete control of this matchup until things deteriorated late in the game. They led by as many as 16 points in the second half. They even held a double-digit lead until Texas Tech got going within 8 with 3:21 to go. According to the TBS broadcast, it was the second largest ever comeback in the Sweet 16. And Texas Tech will now face Florida in the Elite Eight on Saturday night. Entering Thursday, John Calipari was 35-0 in his NCAA tournament career when leading by 6 or more points at halftime. Cal saying after the game, I feel like crap right now, but this was as rewarding of a year as I've had in all my years. It's tough to kind of see the forest through the trees if you're an Arkansas fan because it was an epic collapse. It does stink. At the same time, you got to be really proud of your team getting this far. I think expectations were when Calipari came in, oh my gosh, remember the epic quote when he took the job? I don't have a team. We don't have a roster. There was nobody on the roster, basically. They were able to convince Trevon Brazil to stick around and then brought some guys over from Kentucky, 2 of his recruits in Boogie Flan and Carter Knox followed him from Kentucky over to Arkansas. Of course, DJ Wagner transferred over from Kentucky, Big Z, Adu Thiero. And then Jonas Adu came over from Tennessee. He built this thing up, from scratch. John L. Davis, Nelly came over from FAU. So, but again, it stinks, man, to watch a kid like Nelly Davis drop 30, Carter Knox dropped 20. Kids played their butts off. A game where Adu Thiero, he only played 5 minutes, but he did return to the court. Boogie Flan just didn't do anything. He was 0 for 3 in 9 minutes of play. But yeah, man, you got to put that game away. The Hogs let it slip away, and so they are their tournament run ends. And so, again, congrats to Alabama, congrats to Florida. They continue on dancing, and who will join them? Well, our buddies over at Locked On Kentucky and Locked On Vols, Eric Cain and Lance Dawe, did a little bit of a crossover the other day. Ahead of that one tonight, where we will get SEC on SEC violence tonight. We will let you guys hear a little bit of what they had to say about this matchup coming up next, right here on Locked On SEC. But first, I want to remind you guys about our friends over at Nissan. And look, we are all about the stats because numbers don't lie. When it comes to the new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level with the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds. It can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. You can learn more over at nissanusa.com. This episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, and March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on anything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, even who is cutting down the nets. And again, we got our eyes on a couple of those underdogs throughout this tournament. Thought Arkansas was a pretty good underdog. They were until they lost to Texas Tech. With FanDuel, they're going to make it easy for you to back whatever team you pick with spreads, totals, and game props. And of course, tournament games happening all weekend. There's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long with FanDuel. All right, roll along here. Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And speaking of Locked On, our buddies Eric Cain from Locked On Vols and Lance Dawe of Locked On Kentucky, they did a crossover previewing this big matchup tonight in the Sweet 16 between Tennessee and Kentucky. So without further ado, here's a clip from those guys' show talking about this matchup.
All right, Lance, so we kind of talked about how these two teams got here. Tennessee, despite losing the two matchups in the regular season, Tennessee is a 4.5-point favorite, courtesy of our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook. What does Kentucky need to do to win this game?
I think they have to find a way to keep the three-point shooting hot like they did in the first two contests. You don't just go and easily beat this Tennessee team. You have to have something go wrong, I think, defensively for the Vols. And that's kind of what Tennessee ended up doing in those first two games is, look, Tennessee, third best team in the nation in three-point defense. But you look at the way that they kind of play on that side of the ball. Opponents get 34.6% of their points from beyond the arc. That's 3% above the national average. You go and actually watch it. Tennessee will let some teams take some threes. They don't hit. They get out and they contest well. But they do let you they force you into some bad shots from beyond the arc. And against Kentucky, I think they were, again, you talk about what they were against Illinois, same thing against the Vols. I think especially in that trip to Knoxville, super patient with their shot selection, inside out stuff, type of thing you see from Alabama more often than not, right? With them driving in, kicking out. Kentucky made some really good passes inside out to a variety of guys. So if you're Kentucky, you're going into this one saying, okay, even if they try and take that away from us, if they try and take away those outside shots, we have to remain patient with the flow of the game, and we have to find a way to hit those outside shots. On the other hand, you saw 45 threes in that game in Knoxville, 45, and it was a lot of bad shot selection, Eric. It was forcing the issue, I think, at a variety of points in that game where Tennessee could have settled down, gotten a lead and found a way to win in the second half. But I think they rushed some things. If you're Kentucky, you have to find a way to either eliminate that or pack it in and say, okay, we dare you in this environment, in a football stadium, in this weird. I was actually talking to Gordon Hayward actually earlier today about him playing in places like that. He's like, yeah, it's super weird. It's like playing in a park, makes you super uncomfortable shooting. Maybe you just dare Tennessee to do it. One way or another, I think three-point shooting is going to decide this, and Kentucky has to execute on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, you better get used to shooting because you need some shots to fall in order to win this game. Yeah, I mean, you brought up three-point. That's exactly where I was going to go with it. I mean, it's not like Tennessee was shook. It's not like Tennessee was scared. It's just Tennessee wasn't Tennessee in these two matchups. And I mean, that one, I believe it was in Knoxville, the one I'm referencing. 44, 45 three-point shot attempts. I mean, that is not Tennessee. I mean, sure, Tennessee will take some bad shots every now and again. Okay, Tennessee will take shots and they won't hit. Okay, that's basketball. 45 three-pointers, that is not Tennessee. I mean, that is, I don't know who that team is. And on the flip side, again, it's, sure, Kentucky shoots, Kentucky scores, and Kentucky, has a high point total. That's just kind of who Kentucky is. But I mean, you said it yourself. Tennessee right now, third best perimeter defense? I mean, I think entering postseason, Tennessee was the best three-point shooting defense in the country. Entering that game, Tennessee was the best three-point shooting defense, and Kentucky just couldn't miss. It's like Tennessee just wasn't themselves. And who are you? You're a team that is defensive first, nitty-gritty, get lost in the game defensively, find your rhythm offensively, and go. Chaz Lanier, it helps when you're on, and it helps when you're going, and As you said earlier, your best player, it's a stage, right? I mean, go out there and play, and that's what Zakai Ziegler needs to do. Jordan Gainey's got to be a big factor for Tennessee. Zakai Ziegler, of course, has got to be doing what he does on the defensive end, assisting, and of course not turning the basketball over. And I think one of the X factors, as always, is a guy like Igor Milicic for Tennessee.
Yes.
Not necessarily from the point total, but he has got to rebound. If he does not rebound, it is a long night for Tennessee. So the 3-point storyline in this game: Kentucky hitting them, Tennessee defending them, Tennessee not taking as many. Again, I don't know who that team was that played Kentucky in that regard. So that's kind of one of the big storylines for me in this one.
I think also something that we have to ask, you're talking about Igor, you're talking about, rebounding. What do we see physically inside? And I don't know what officiating crew we're going to get for this one, but if they're not from consistently, if they've not consistently seen SEC ball or Kentucky or Tennessee, do we see this thing officiated dramatically different than the first two, where you see a lot of hand check stuff, you see a lot of things called? I saw you tweeting on it on the timeline just a couple of days ago about just how bad some different calls were. I have gone mad complaining about it on my show for a couple different games this season in the SEC, where it just feels like it's not consistent. College basketball officiating has been, I think this is the worst I've seen it in my life. And I'm curious to see with guys like Milicic, Okpara, Amari Williams, and Brandon Garrison, what does the game look like inside? Because as much as we talk about how important 3-point shooting is going to be, look, if the shots aren't falling, you have to ask the question, how quickly are you able to get the ball inside with guys like Ziegler or Gainey? If you're looking at Kentucky, Ken Otega-Owe, who has been just a get downhill and get out of his way type guy, is he going to be able to either finish or get calls? What is this going to look like? I think that's a major talking point, and we're not going to know until we see it.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Barnes kind of said it the other night. It's like, just like a team, the officials, you kind of know the style they're going to call, but you truly don't know it until you get out there and you kind of settle in. And,
right.
The other night, Tennessee, UCLA, I mean, we thought it was going to be, the game didn't tip until 9:53 Eastern, by the way. And then the rate they were calling fouls in the first half, it's like, good Lord, man, we're going to be out here until dawn. They called so many fouls. Jemai Mashak, another in-your-face defender, defensive player of the year candidate, along with Zakai Ziegler, two finalists. I mean, he picked up 2 early fouls, and Felix Okpara had an early foul, a couple of different guys. And then in the second half, it's like they didn't call a thing. It was strange. It was very inconsistent. It's like, okay, I mean, what was a foul in the first half both ways is now not a foul here. So I'll be intrigued to kind of see what that is, to your point. Injury situation. Lamont Butler obviously has been dealing with the shoulder and a couple different guys. What's the health status for the Kentucky Wildcats? Tennessee, I mean, it's the same guy's been out all year, JP Estrella. I mean, they're right. Everybody's banged and bruised, but Tennessee's pretty healthy.
Yeah, I think in the words, I'm going to quote Mark Pope here, it's being held together by duct tape right now. I mean, Lamont Butler specifically, his shoulder, I don't know how healthy he is. He's healthy enough to play with a brace, but he is holding on for dear life right now. I don't know if you saw it. Rick Pitino earlier tweeted out about how 2 of his guys are about to immediately get surgery. I think one, both on their hands, either that or one of them had an ACL, something that they were going to immediately get surgery on. It's like they were playing fully injured. I'm really intrigued when Kentucky's season ends, if it does end Friday or if it ends later on, how many guys immediately go to get things fixed. And I think Butler will be at the top of that list.
You see it every year in football, right? I mean, Tennessee's in spring practice right now. There's 10 guys that aren't practicing because you have cleanup surgeries every year. So it feels like it's a little bit more evident in basketball because rotations are smaller. There's no pads. You're trying to shoot something through a hoop so you can notice if something's wrong.
And when you look at somebody like Amari Williams, something that Kentucky fans have been really complaining about on Twitter is the fact that he doesn't dunk the ball more consistently. And he's been, instead of going to dunk the ball in these tournament games, he's been laying it up and missing so many shots at the rim. And people are just irate saying dunk the ball. Turns out he's got some pretty serious back problems right now, and he can't get up. And it's a struggle for him to do so. So our starting 5 is kind of struggling with some stuff. Lamont Butler is obviously, I think, banged up, but look, they're fighting like their life depends on it right now in these couple of games. I expect nothing less than that this Friday against Tennessee. But the reality is everybody's banged up. Kirk Carissa, Jackson Robinson out for the season. We know that. You're not going to have Jax who played very well in Knoxville. So how do you change that, or how do you kind of recoup from that? Well, Colin Chandler's been great off the bench. Kobe Bray has kind of filled in that role. But as far as injuries go, Kentucky is what they are, or they are what they are right now, and it's just going to be a matter of can they stay healthy the full 40 minutes while also trying to find a way to win, which is going to be tough. It's going to be physical.
Yep, going to be a physical game. One of those guys that's kind of going through it for Kentucky right now on the injury front, but just continuing to play well, Lamont Butler. He had some comments post-game after the round of 32 win for the Wildcats. I want to ask Lance about this. And
all right, that again, Eric Cain and Lance Dawe. When we return, we'll let you hear what they had to say about that bulletin board material. Still more to come here on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Hey, but first, daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun. Sometimes you need a little boost to power through it, whether you're staying up late watching the tourney, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day. 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Of course, we've been staying up late all night watching all these games. 5-Hour Energy is going to help pick you up the next day. Go ahead to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach, mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and get it delivered right to your door. With longer days, you can get outside for a hike or run. Tropical bursts could be your quick boost. If you need one now, go grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized with 5-Hour Energy.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Before we get into previewing the games tonight, let's hear a little bit more from Eric Cain and Lance Dawe as they were doing their Tennessee-Kentucky crossover preview, talking about Lamont Butler's comments.
You're in my industry. It's a headline. We got to roll with it, right? I provided context, but he had a really good quote talking about the league prepares you. The league, week in and week out, you play good teams. You're, getting prepared to face another good team, another conference team in the Sweet 16, and yada, 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 talk. It was a good quote. But at the end, he says, and we're going to win that game. Boy, for a team like Tennessee that just clings to any bulletin board material, they remember the way Florida celebrated after beating them in early January, and then Tennessee a couple weeks later down like 2 or 3 players, beats them by 20 inside Thompson-Boling Arena. For a team that just clings to anything like that, I just feel like it's fun for people like us. Probably not the smartest thing for Butler, who's a phenomenal player, to say, but it just kind of adds a little bit of flair to this weekend, right?
Yeah, look, if you're looking to both preserve your body and a possible win, I don't think that's the smartest thing for Lamont Butler to possibly say. Of course, you have to look at the quote entirely in its context. But let me tell you what Tennessee's fans and their players are not doing. Looking at that, and frankly, I don't blame them. This is a situation here with Kentucky where if you lose this game to Tennessee, you are never going to hear the end of it. Right? Like the reality is Kentucky, miles ahead of their football program when it comes to success and prestige. You don't have squat on the Vols when it comes to what's going on the football field. This is your realm. If you find a way to screw it up here in the biggest stage, might be one of the biggest games in the history of this rivalry, I might quit because of that. This could not be a bigger deal, I don't think. I don't think we're talking about just how significant this could end up being historically for the history of this rivalry moving forward. This is a massive, massive deal. And look, Butler, I love his confidence. The kid's been there before, right? He got him to the title game, right? He got San Diego State all the way. He found a way to be a major contributor, but man, if you're trying to stay healthy, I'm curious to see how Tennessee handles him physically on Friday. That's I think that's going to be a space to watch for sure.
I think so too. And again, like Tennessee's so veteran led, and the style they play defensively. Again, I mentioned 2 National Defensive Player of the Year nominees, and Jamon Mashack's just going to body him up at one point. Ziegler's going to run into. I mean, Tennessee's going to be physical. Now, a couple years ago when Tennessee had Uros Plavsic at points in times, man, it was just like.
I'll mention his name on this show. I'm sorry.
At points in times, it was like, okay, you need that.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, it's like, dude, stop. That's not what Tennessee does, but Tennessee is so physical, and I think that's obviously got to be a calling card in this one. And to your point about this rivalry and how this might be one of the biggest matchups ever in this rivalry, for anybody to have such success, if you want to call it that, against Coach Cal, I mean, I think Rick Barnes had it, man. Rick Barnes had a lot of wins in this rivalry while he's been at Tennessee the last 9 years going up against Coach Cal. And, of course, he's gone to Arkansas right now. So far, 0-2 against Mark Pope, but third time's a charm. Tennessee, 4.5-point favorites over at FanDuel. Where are you leaning right now? Obviously, I would assume you're going to take Kentucky.
I think the line makes sense. I mean, look at the metrics. Look, just reality check for Kentucky fans. Tennessee, I think, as far as just overall product, has played way more consistently than the Cats have. Now, talk about injuries and all the different factors that kind of play into it. Sure, but at the end of the day, I think the Vols, they earned that 2 seed for a reason. Kentucky's a 3 seed for a reason. They both had different things fall different ways, and I think there's a reason why Tennessee is 10 spots higher on KenPom, right? It's because of the inability to be consistent on the defensive end. But as I said earlier, talking with Hayward and Isaac Shade and Andy Patton, you've won this matchup twice. This exact same matchup twice. Tennessee's going to have to throw some major wrinkles into their game plan, or they're going to have to hit the outside shot. One of those two things or both are going to have to happen in order for Tennessee to find a way to win this game.
Or, just defend it, right?
Or just put your hand up, defend an outside shot. Kentucky is playing. If they had lost Butler, if they were playing cold, if they had gotten bailed out in the Illinois game and something horrible had gone wrong, I'd be leaning in Tennessee's direction. But man, I know what people say about how hard it is to beat a team 3 times in a row. And it's true. It's absolutely true, despite what happened with Alabama earlier this season. Alabama's a different breed when it comes to Kentucky, but it's matchup. That was a matchup problem for Kentucky. And I think that's what's happening here with the Vols. So I'm going to take Kentucky. I understand if somebody would take Tennessee. FanDuel, I understand why they would have the Vols favored. I would not be shocked if Tennessee won this game by 25 on Friday. If everything Kentucky had left in the tank, they poured out and they lit it on fire in a court in Milwaukee here over the weekend. Wouldn't be shocked if that was it. Incredible season for Mark Pope. Hey, we're like one step away from building a statue for this man based on what happened in this first season. But give me the Cats to find a way, man. I'm not going to point to anything specific. Just find a way to win.
Yeah, I mean, expert analysis here. I mean, I'm going to take Tennessee for that very reason. This team is too veteran led. This team is so good to fall in this matchup a third time this year. Again, Tennessee does things so well. Tennessee is one of the best defensive teams in the country, the best defensive team in the country for the majority of the season. Tennessee defends the 3 ball better than pretty much anybody in the country consistently. It didn't work out the first 2 matchups, but is it going to really not work out a third time? I can't believe that. And I understand it. Like, if Kentucky wins this game, it's like, okay, well, Kentucky already won this matchup twice. Like, I get it, but I just think Tennessee finds a way, to your point. And Chaz Lanier's playing out of his mind right now, and you got to love it. And you mentioned that, he picked Tennessee over Kentucky, picked Tennessee over BYU as well. Those were kind of the final 3 left standing. And he came to Tennessee. Really, you could pick Tennessee or Kentucky for this matter, but he came to Tennessee to play in the postseason, to get ready, try to get drafted. Came to Tennessee to play in these types of games. I think Chaz Lanier is going to step up as he's continued to do already in the first 2 games, and I think he's going to have a day for the Volunteers in Indianapolis. Give me Tennessee. Give me Tennessee too. It's so hard to play this with basketball because the end of the games can be wild. Give me Tennessee to win but not cover. I think it's going to be so close, and it's going to be a really, really fun game.
All right, thanks again to those guys over there. Locked on Vols, Locked on Kentucky, Lance Dawe, Eric Cain. Let's get into the other games happening tonight. 6 seed Ole Miss versus 2 seed Michigan State. This should be a fun one. The Rebels' record in SEC play is 11-9. Ole Miss ranks 8th in the SEC shooting at 34% from 3-point range. Michigan State They average 6 made threes per game. It's 1.9 fewer made shots on average than Ole Miss gives up per game at 7.9. Ole Miss has shot at 44% rate from the field this season. It's 4 percentage points higher than shooting opponents of Michigan State has averaged. Jaden Atkins is the guy to watch for Michigan State, 39% shooting on the season. And, of course, Sean Padula for Ole Miss is averaging 15 points per game with 3.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Rebels are 5-5 in their last 10 games, however. They're averaging 75 points, 28 rebounds, 11 assists, and their opponents have averaged 79 points. So, look, Ole Miss is going to need a special performance tonight. Obviously, Michigan State has been there, done that so many times in the tournament. Tom Izzo is, he lives for this. Chris Beard, though, proven to be a good tournament coach. Obviously, his runs at Texas Tech, his brief run at Texas, and now at Ole Miss, turning them into a tournament contender. I think this ends the road for Ole Miss, but I expect a heck of a game. I hope they play their butts off. Sean Padula might hit some big shots late again like he has throughout this season. I'll take Michigan State to win, but again, rooting for Ole Miss. Would love to see them pull this thing off tonight. And then the other one happening tonight, it is 1 seed Auburn versus 5 seed Michigan. Auburn, they've gone 16-4 this season against the FCC with a 14-1 record in non-conference play. Auburn scores 83 points a game while outscoring their opponents by 14 points per game. Like the 83 points per game is 12.5 more per game than Michigan allows. Michigan's defense pretty darn strong, giving up just 71 a game. Of course, Janai Broom scores 18 a game, averages over 10.5 rebounds. Miles Kelly, he's averaging over 13.5 points and 3.5 rebounds over his last 10 games. Tigers are 7-3 in their last 10, where they've averaged 80 points, 31 rebounds, 15 assists. I just feel like this game to me is SEC versus Big Ten pride. I know, we got Ole Miss versus Michigan State, but it's a 6 seed versus a 2 seed. I've just seen so many people talking up Michigan. I think Auburn gets it done. I think Auburn joins the ranks of their other brethren in the Elite Eight in Alabama and Florida. I think Auburn's on that level with those teams. I think Auburn gets it done. And then lastly, we have Tennessee versus Kentucky. Of course, it is hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season. Kentucky went 2-0 against Tennessee in the regular season. And what a great job Mark Pope has done at Kentucky. Kobe Bryant, all the different guys that they have there. I think this is going to be a close one. I think it's going to come down the wire. But I'm going to err on the side of experience. Rick Barnes has coached in a lot of tournament games. I think Tennessee gets it done tonight against Kentucky. No offense to the Wildcats and Kentucky fans out there. I just think this might be the end of the road for them, but should be a heck of a game. And that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Thanks to Eric Cain and Lance Dawe for their crossover. Thank you guys for checking us out. And hey, for your second listen, check out Locked On Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here. So be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We will talk to you guys on Monday, recapping all the action. See how many SEC teams end up in the Final Four.